Well, how's everyone doing today? Let me tell you a little bit about myself, and I think that'll give you the point of view that I bring to this conversation. First, on the professional side, I've been a lawyer with Howe & Hutton for over 20 years, and that was just supposed to be a temporary job till I found what I really should or needed to be doing, but I've just kind of stuck around. And I've been a lawyer for about 26 years, and I'm one of, I think, the minority of lawyers that really enjoys what I do. What I do at Howe & Hutton is I'm what you call the generalist. Did anyone ever see the movie Michael Clayton? It's a good rental. It stars George Clooney. And so I'm the lawyer at Howe & Hutton. If we have a problem out of our DC office or Chicago where we have a client maybe that gets a DUI or is getting divorced or needs a will, real estate deal, whatever, big trouble, then they'll throw it my way and say, here, just deal with it, Sam. Or I do a lot of litigation in the hospitality area. I litigate pretty much everything. In fact, 2 weeks ago I had a trial. A lady was charged by the state of Illinois of duct taping her child to a chair so that she could go shopping. Okay. Well, you know, not every case is an Abraham Lincoln moment, right? The good news is we kept her out of jail, but the bad news is we lost, and she will no longer ever be able to be a foster parent. Now, speaking of foster parent, on the personal side, my wife and I have 3 kids. I met my wife on Match.com before it was cool, before it was accepted. I remember going into Kinko's to get my digital picture taken, and the lady cracking her gum, she says, "What, you're going to use this on the internet?" You know, I felt about this tall, yeah. But we have 1 son, and then we have an adopted son that we adopted last December, and we're crazy, a 2-year-old foster daughter that we got her when we were 6 months old, or when she was 6 weeks old. And I told my wife recently, you know, because she got another phone call, I said, no, you know, we're done. 3 dogs, 3 kids, and an RV. I can't handle anymore. Okay, so now just a couple housekeeping items. If you have a question while I'm talking, don't be bashful. Feel free to raise your hand and we'll handle it, because it means either that you've got a burning issue going on, or maybe I misspoke, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to leave here thinking that maybe I gave you some bad information. And if you ask me a question I don't know the answer to, I'll just say, you know what, we'll handle that at the end, and then we'll just ignore it from that point forward. But I want to encourage you, think of it like a free lawyer for about an hour, okay? Now, I'm going to wind up between 10 after and quarter after, and thereafter, I have to hustle to make a flight. But my contact info is going to be on the last slide, and I would encourage you, feel free to take down my phone number and my email, and ask me a follow-up question if you have one. It's not disguised subliminal marketing or anything like that. Okay, I will help you, I won't charge you. Now, if you call me with a big, complicated deal, okay, well, that's not included. Then I'll refer you to somebody who I know can help you, or we'll make some other kind of arrangement. But I want to encourage you to reach out. And just like you're going to make friends, or you already have your big network here, you know, that's how you get the answers. Yeah, Joe was telling you, I have a master's of law degree in taxation. Ooh, sounds fancy, sounds smart, doesn't it? It took me 5 years of night school to do that. I did that so I would stop drinking when I was single in Chicago at night, and it worked. But I don't know any more about taxes than you do. And I'm sincere when I say that, Tracy. But people think that I know more than you do, and that's very helpful for business. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today isn't going to be condescending or paternalistic. It's just things that I've learned over 26 years, how you can make yourself appear to be more confident, to be more together. And that's what people like. Because ask yourself, and I ask myself this too sometimes, why do people seek me out? Why do people come to me and be my clients? Is it because they think I'm this super smart lawyer? No, you have to be kidding me. It's because we have a good time and they know the job will get done. And they know that I'm not too proud to ask somebody for some help. Okay? So let's see what's going on here in our industry. Okay, we've already gone through Sam Erkonen. I get asked this question quite a bit. Oh, Sam, are we in a buyer's market? Are we in the seller's market? For my money, it doesn't really matter, because I handle typically the liability type issues, And, I've been in this game a while, and it's a cycle. Things go up, things go down, peaks and valleys. And so let's say you're in a buyer's market. Big mistake a lot of planners make is they try to really crush the facility or the hotel. Oh, sharpen your pencil. Oh, you can do better than that, this and that. I'm going to brag to you right now. In 21 years, how many times has one of my clients paid a big attrition bill? Not once. Is it because I'm a really good lawyer? I tell people that, okay? But that's not the case. It's because we always treat the other side the way we want to be treated, right? Like Pope Francis just said, the golden rule. And ask yourself, okay, let's say Jerry here in the front row, sorry. Let's say Jerry's negotiating with a property and he's been somewhat rude, a little bit unprofessional, doesn't always return calls promptly, is asking for things that are kind of crazy. And let's say I'm negotiating with the same property and I've always been friendly, courteous, call back, get the facility what they need. And so Jerry and I both have events going on, and both of them are really running into trouble. And you're the hotelier, and you have 2 phone messages, one from Jerry, the jerk, and one from Sam, who's been nice. Who do you think you're going to, call back first? And who do you think you're going to really try to help out in a tough situation? And again, my client is going to benefit from that, not because I'm any smarter, any richer, anything other than I was nicer. It goes a long way. People misunderstand niceness for weakness. Niceness can be strength, okay? We've all been on the airplanes, and you see the airplane magazine and that guy Carnegie who runs those negotiation classes. It's like you just look at that picture and you think, ooh, he's a tough guy. I wouldn't want to negotiate against him. And so you think, oh, I have to be this tough guy. I have to be this hard-nosed person. Big mistake people make, okay? One of my favorite things that I hear from clients, that I've spoken to, Fortune 100 groups, whatever, is they say, you know what, Sam, you were right. I could really be myself, and it's better. Because if you think you have to be somebody else and you get that knot in your stomach, it's like dating. It's like dating your customer, okay? Remember when we were dating back in the day? Some of you still might be. And you just know right from the very beginning, this isn't good. This is not going to end well. But we still do it anyway. And it just goes from kind of uncomfortable to worse. You have to listen to yourself. Listen to your gut. Your gut will tell you when you start getting uncomfortable. And it's because you either have lost client control, your client is expecting things that you cannot deliver, or it's because you think that you're failing in the negotiation. You are an information expert, okay? Your job is to get the client the information they need and to guide them and to give them your advice. Your job is not to create a mountain out of sand. And we have to let our clients know this. So in my long-winded answer here, yes, we're clearly in a seller's market. And this has been going on for some time. And if you really want to get into the academics of it, this is kind of how things go. The occupancy increases, and of course the rate is going to increase. And this is a very systemic cycle. It repeats itself over and over. So that's about where we are right now. Now, a number of years ago, the hotels gave away a lot of rooms and space, a lot of really good deals. And what we have going on now is the owners, and tell me if I'm wrong, the owners are asserting so much more control that it's almost scary. Because back in the day, if there was a problem, we could call up the general manager and say, look, here's our problem, help us work through it. Now the owners, if you can find them, because all these assets, to sound cool, that's what you call a hotel, these assets are owned not by Donald Trump, not by Joe Schmo or Jocelyn Schmo. They're owned by these limited partnerships, okay? it's hard to find out who's calling the shots. But these limited partnerships are putting so much pressure on the operators of hotels, it's scary, and that's why we're seeing much less flexibility as far as resolving problems. Does anyone disagree with me? Yeah, it's really made it difficult out there. Feel like you're being nickel and dimed here and there? It's going on. We don't see it changing at all. So what does this mean to you as a planner? Well, we have to communicate this to our clients. We have to tell them that we are at this point in the cycle, that the owners are exerting, for the first time ever, real control over the situation. The owners are putting so much pressure on the general managers, on the sales managers, that it's making them less flexible with us, which makes our job more difficult. Does that mean that we're in big trouble? Not at all. It just means we have to have our eyes open. I love it when my wife does that to me. Listen to me. That's what we have to tell our clients. Listen, okay? This is the circumstances within which we are dealing. We're also seeing more renovations going on, and hopefully we're getting near the tail end of that cycle. How does that affect us? Well, nobody likes to get on site for an event. Oh my gosh, I didn't know you were redoing the front entrance. It doesn't look good, does it? How do we protect ourselves against that? Oh, Sam, let's put a renovation clause in the contract. Well, you can do that all you want. It's not going to help you, okay? Because how a hotel, when I'm on the hotel side, how we get out of that is we basically say, here's what we can do for you to minimize that impact. I'm not aware of one successful challenge that a group has ever made to a property to assert that they can get out of a contract because of renovations. So what our job is on the planning professional side is to stay on top of it as best we can. If we hear anything in the wind about a construction or renovation project, let's call the person at the hotel with whom we have been dealing and ask him or her, hey, what's going on? And hopefully, if we have been nice, if we have developed that good relationship, we'll get some good information. Because I train the lawyers at Howe and Hutton, and I say, you know what, I'm really easy. Number one, we have 4 o'clock every Friday, we have cocktails in my office where we put our feet up on the desk and we talk about the pros and cons, what worked, what didn't work, what the disasters were of the week. And they like it. I said, you have to come to that. You don't have to drink, but you have to come to that. Rule 2 is I don't care what you tell me, you have to tell me. Because I can't fix it if I don't know what's going on. And I don't want to look stupid because I do enough of that on my own. And I don't want to have something outside of my control making it even worse. We're smart people, all of us in this room, we can figure things out. Okay, but we can't figure it out if we adhere to the normal human nature, which is, oh, this is unpleasant, I don't want to deal with it. So let's set it aside for a little bit. And then that time bomb just keeps ticking, doesn't it? And then we are vulnerable to Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. So a lot of decisions that the owners are making are being driven by the revenue manager. We're also seeing a lot of concessions farmed out, such as valet parking, pretty much anything and everything. So some of the freebies that we used to be able to get, we're just not able to get those anymore. So again, you tell your client, hey, we used to be able to get free parking, now we can't. But here's why. Because the industry has changed a little bit, and the hotel doesn't have that to give away anymore. That soft money just doesn't exist. Now, a lot of times when I'm in court, we have to talk about contracts. I mean, it was fun doing that duct tape case, because that's something that a jury could really wrap their arms around. And I was making these arguments, that, look, it's not like my client was wrapping the duct tape really tight. She was doing it loosely. She was acting kindly. But when I have to deal with a contract case, you only have a brief amount of time when you have the jury's attention. And you have to maximize that. And so I tend to stay away from, the fancy legal definitions. Well, if you have an offer that's accepted and you have proper consideration, blah, blah, blah. You can just imagine me talking to the jury is like being in Charlie Brown's class listening to the teacher, wah, wah, wah. They're not listening anymore. So I usually say something like, you throw a barb at the other lawyer. Look, I'm not rich and famous like Tracy Rizzo. I'm just a country lawyer here to tell you what I know about this. And she can use all the fancy language and try to hide behind that. But where I come from, a contract is a deal. It's a promise. We all make promises, we all make deals, right? And we all have to hold up our end of the bargain. And we're saying that the property did not hold up their end of the bargain. People can understand that. Now, I talk a lot about client control. There's two kinds of people in this world when you're dealing with a contract. There's person one, which is the more dangerous person. Oh yeah, whatever you put in front of me, heck yes, I'll sign it. And then they're negotiating from that point forward until the day of the event. Well, we've been thinking about this, and they don't get it that the hotel based a lot of their offer on the global pricing of everything. Well, I guess we don't want that big meeting room. Well, they were counting on that. Person two is the kind, they're more of the, what I call the pain in the rear end client, but they're the best clients. They're the ones that call all the time, email, text you to death. But once that deal is done, once you get across that desert, and thank goodness we're at the oasis and they've signed the contract, and that's done. A deal is a deal. And those are the good clients that we have. So if we think that one of our clients is like client number one, the kind that's going to get cute after the deal is done, we have to rein them in. This is our job. We cannot say, I'm really sorry about Billy, who's kind of acting inappropriately. No, this is on us as the professional. Client control is everything. As a lawyer, I get calls and people will have some harebrained thing. Yeah, it sounds interesting, but we've been burned so many times. So I'll say, hey, come on into the office and I'll talk to you. I won't charge you anything. Do I really care to meet them in person? Sure, I like to meet in person. Is it important or critical in this electronic age? No. I can get the documents via email. I just want to see if they're actually going to show up, if they're going to have some skin in the game. Or another thing is, yeah, I want to file this case, Sam. Okay, yeah, sounds great. Yeah, just bring me in the $377 filing fee and we'll get this going for you. Yeah, I won't charge you to draft a complaint. How many times do they send me that check? Rarely. But it saves us time. So let's get your clients to have some skin in the game here. Have them sit down with you and say, okay, you can be kind of flamboyant about this. All right, we're going to go through this deal from point A to point Z. And your client undoubtedly is going to say, oh my gosh, I'm so busy, I'm so important, I don't have that amount of time to give you. Do you have 5 minutes? Okay, just call me from your car and we'll walk through this. We are so distracted with the computer screen, with our phones, etc. And that's why it's so hard to get 5 minutes of somebody's time. But think about it. 5 minutes, all right, is it going to fit within our budget? Yeah, it's looking good. Okay, let's just make sure we got all the liability issues covered. Okay, we're going to get on site. We're going to take a motor coach to a restaurant. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to have a cocktail party. Where are the areas where we can get into trouble? And if you really think about these things, you can take care of it right away. But the skin in the game is getting them to consider it instead of putting it all on your shoulders. Sometimes you're not going to know this group, how they behave, who the troublemakers might be, who the people that are routinely late. Part of client control is always share the bad news. I don't care what you tell me, you have to tell me. And so if you have something that's not going well, a negotiation with the property, you have to tell your client. I know it's not pleasant. When I get a bad ruling in a case, do I like calling the client and say, hey, I got news for you, we lost? That's no fun. It's a lot more fun to call them up and say, hey, we won. Can you believe it? Or come on, let's go to lunch, or let's go have a drink after work. That's fun. It's no fun to give them bad news, but you have to do it. That's part of the job. Because if you don't, what are you setting yourself up for? Them saying, oh, I wish you would have told me, because we could have done A, B, or C. And then you're going to look bad. And all it was a conversation you didn't have with them. And if you don't want to have that conversation, you can just send them a text or send them an email. That's easier, but at least you've got it out there. You've told them. Have any of you been asked by properties to renegotiate existing contracts? Yeah, it doesn't happen that often, but there are a lot of contracts out there that are vulnerable to properties selling the same space, the same rooms for higher amounts. It is a seller's market. Can a hotel kick you out of the space that you've already agreed to, that you've signed a contract for? Sure. Can they do that legally under the contract? No, but it's called breach of contract. And in any breach of contract case, the non-breaching party, which is your client, is entitled to be placed in the position they would have been in had there been no breach. So basically what that means is whatever your additional costs are to go someplace else, the hotel will cover that. And if you have to have extra staff, get them pizza at night to send out all the FedExes to attendees. Oh, by the way, we're not at the Sheraton, we're at the Marriott now. The hotel will gladly pay for all that. It's a contract, whether or not you have language to that effect in your contract. But we don't want that to happen, because it makes us look like we're getting kicked to the curb, right? So that's yet another reason to develop that good rapport, that really good, solid relationship with the property. They're not your enemy, they're not your foe, they are your friend. And again, if they're going to kick somebody to the curb, let's have them kick Jerry, who wasn't that pleasant, as opposed to me. We want to make it where we are their last choice to kick out. And you know what? In this world, we all can't be smarter, we all can't get thinner or richer, this and that, but we all can do a better job of communicating, each and every one of us, and that means via email, follow-up, and we all can do better about returning phone calls. And you be pleasant. I don't know if you've ever dealt with death in your life, but you want to live your life. Like, I had a really good friend from college call me, hey Sam, I'm going to be in Tinley Park. I live southwest of Chicago, and I work out of the Joliet area some days when I'm closer to home. He says, yeah, let's get together for a drink. Well, I needed to do that like I needed a hole in the head. But what if I would have said, no, Brad, I don't want to do that, or I can't do it. And then let's say he dropped dead a week later. I would have always felt bad about that. So you do try to live in a way that somebody's last memory or their most recent memory of you is a positive one, instead of being unpleasant. Don't you love talking to flight attendants or people at hotels and say, hey, so how's your day going? When they're having a bad day, they will let you know. Now, again, as the lawyer in me, I say we always review each and everything. Our built-in relief points, that's like when we are able to take, let's say, 10% reduction in our rooms. Let's make sure we have sticky notes. Let's make sure that our client has been told, hey, just so you know, on or before July 15th, we have the right to reduce our room block 10%. So I'm going to make a note here in my calendar to call you July 1st. So that way, if they don't take that reduction, then we can say, I let you know this, and I followed up with you. You didn't call me back. I was doing my best. Instead of us forgetting to take that. We like to have some things remain absolutely certain in our contracts, the room rates, we're not going to deviate from that. We really don't want to mess around with our block. And if the classic example is pharmaceuticals, if we have some pharmaceutical event, we want to make sure that there's not a competing one going on at the same time. Or if you're having a mini convention somewhere, we don't want the competing trade association to have an event at that property, let's say the week before or the week after, because then our attendees are going to have to pick and choose. Now, every time I give a presentation in the hospitality industry, it seems like it deteriorates into a conversation about attrition. But the key things here is we want to know what's going to happen in the event of a resale. Here's what we're looking at. Under the law, in all 50 states, let's say I'm a hotel, you come up short, you only take half the rooms that you said you were going to, but we are able to resell all of those rooms. So I send you a bill for the attrition, and you say, hey, Sam, you resold all those rooms, you haven't been hurt. I say, I know, but you agreed to pay for 100% of the rooms, you only took 50%, so you owe me for the difference. Who's right if we go to court? Does the hotel get to keep that blood money, or is the group correct that because the hotel was able to resell it all, that they need to lay off them for the attrition? Yes, ma'am. She's right. She said whatever the contract says. So we have to build in what's called mitigation language into our contracts, which basically puts a duty on the facility to try to resell the space. In the absence of that mitigation language, there's no duty. If we have that mitigation language in there and the hotel is able to resell some of the rooms, now we're talking. Now we get credit for what they resold. How do we know what they resold? In the contracts that I prepare for clients, I put some verification language in there. I make the payment of any attrition, and this is not being distrustful of a facility, but you have to understand there's usually three systems in a hotel, sometimes maybe even more, where they track rooms. You got the accounting, you got the sales, you got the house, you got this, you got that. So we want to make any payment of attrition contingent upon the receipt of whatever reasonable information and documentation that we might request. Hey, we just want to check. Because we all understand that nobody ever books around the block, right? That never happens. I have a mother-in-law, she drives from downtown Chicago to Indiana so she can save $1.50 on a pack of cigarettes. It makes my wife nuts. And my wife says, all the wear and tear in the car, the gas, blah, blah, blah. Some people just like doing it. They like getting a deal or a perceived deal. So we want to make sure that we get credit for any rooms resold. And a hotel is not going to balk at it if you make it contingent upon that. And if they do balk at it, you say, look, it's not that I'm distrustful, I just want to make sure that we get credit for everybody that we bring into the house. Okay? Something that we've seen somewhat recently is groups trying to get out of contracts for political correctness reasons, such as I think it was Arizona had a proposed law that was perceived to be somewhat racist, and so some groups were saying, hey, we don't want to come to your state because we think you're racist. Is that a reason to get out of the contract? The answer is no. Okay, that is what we call a market risk. May not be the same as when we first envisioned the event, the environment. When I was asked to come here, I understood, hey, this is a high-profile event. This one is well done. Let's say I would have called the powers that be a couple weeks ago and they said, you know what, Sam, attendance is really going to be low. It's just not going well. Can I get out of the contract because it was going to be a big waste of my time? No. Too bad for me, right? You sign up for something, you hope for the best. It's not always going to be perfect bunnies and rainbows out there. Now, boilerplate in contracts, we really don't have to pay attention to that, right? It's just kind of BS. That doesn't really matter. Usually, you remember that movie Cool Hand Luke? One of the famous lines that goes over and over in that movie is, what we have here is a failure to communicate. Boilerplate counts just as much as all the other pages and pieces of ink on that paper. So we, as a meeting professional, do we have to understand each and everything of boilerplate? No. But we have to be familiar with it. And we have to be able to get an answer quickly if a client calls. We have to have that ability. Choice of law. A lot of times that's buried in there. If you have an event in Arizona, be careful. There is a state statute that says in the event of litigation on a written contract in the state of Arizona, the loser pays the fees of the winner. That's good information, isn't it? Is it going to affect whether or not we do business in Arizona? No. But that's something that can make us look smart in front of our client. We can say, hey, this is going to be a great event in Phoenix. Hey, just so you know, there's a state statute in Arizona that says if we lose, we have to pay their fees. And if we're feeling kind of risk-taking, if we want to sue the hotel for whatever reason and we win, then they'll pay our fees. A client will be impressed. Prevailing party, that's the attorney fee provision. We want to make sure whether or not that is in the contract. Typically, it is. Dispute resolution. Arbitration is no good. Okay, that's very unpopular to say. I'm a lawyer that does arbitration work. Okay, you got mediation. Mediation is where you have a respected, typically it's an ex-judge, who will sit down with the parties and tell you, here's what I think. And if the parties really dislike each other, they'll be in two different rooms and the judge will go back and forth. Arbitration, there's two kinds. There's JAMS, J-A-M-S, and there's AAA, American Arbitration Association. The problem with arbitration, okay, let me tell you, the good news about arbitration is it moves more quickly than traditional litigation. The bad news is, big surprise, and they won't tell you this, it is more expensive than litigation because you and your client have to pay the arbitrator. And the arbitrator will give, and you have to pay it up front. And they'll tell you, well, I'm going to spend 5 hours on research on this point. Well, are you kidding me, Judge? Aren't you supposed to be this expert? Isn't that why we picked you to be our arbitrator? And they charge like $800 an hour. So what are we really going to do? Are we going to challenge the arbitrator? Oh, we think your rates are too high. Yeah, that's going to go over real well, isn't it? So you get your client to write the check, and it gets expensive. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. So again, is that something you're probably going to be able to negotiate out of a contract? Probably not, but this is something else that we can bring up to our client and say, hey, just so you know, arbitration is not the end-all be-all. And traditional litigation, it's not that bad. You're talking 1-2 years to get to the point of no return, where you're going to go or not go to trial. Just like in this political era, you're going to hear a lot about the estate tax, probate. Probate's not that bad of a deal either. It's usually about a year at tops. Entire agreement. Usually this is one of the last clauses. This contract is the entire agreement between the parties, no other, blah, blah, blah. What that means is email doesn't count. Whatever is on these 9 pages, that's our contract. And if the contract says this contract can only be modified by standing on your head and initialing it 3 times on each page, then that's what we have to do. We cannot modify that. Relationship building, I've mentioned this over and over. You're probably getting tired of it. It's just something that I think is very important. It's a way to set yourself apart from other people. You know, there's 5 or 10% of the population that are crazy. They were just born that way, or they're mean. Okay, and there's probably another half, maybe 50% of the population that they just don't have the social skills to do what they need to do. So we only have to deal with about 40%, right? And the way that we can set ourselves above them is to do our job, to mention the things to our clients that we've been talking about, and just to be a nice person. So then you're going to get up to around the 10% without even really trying, right? It's amazing what being normal can do for you in this society. And being confident, for some of you younger people out there, you're not going to be confident overnight. There's no book or pamphlet you can read to make you confident. It's just like anything else in this world. The more you do things, the better you get at it. And just recognize that. It's like being a parent. As horrible, as horrific as today was, I am guided by the principle that tomorrow will be a better day. I hope, okay? And we always share the bad news. Our difficult economy certainly made things much more difficult because of our budgets, because of the hotel's budget, and because of the hotel's ownership getting involved. Just overall less flexibility out there. Now, technology has been a wonderful thing, but it's tricky out there. Back near the end of President Clinton's tenure, and all that stuff was going on, Monica Lewinsky selling room nights in the Lincoln bedroom, this and that. It's too bad because it overshadowed when he signed the Electronic Signatures and Global Commerce Act. And what that act did is it basically said, hey, contracts can be entered into via voicemail, fax, email. It all counts the same. So we want to make sure that the people that work for us understand that. It's not a freebie. And if you get something, let's say from a property, and you're not quite sure if this is an offer, you write them back and say, hey, I'm not really quite sure. Is this an offer or not? Is this firm? We cannot have any failures of communication. That is something that we can eliminate. We cannot eliminate the Katrinas of the world. We can eliminate failures of communication. One thing that gets, I think, not ignored, but sometimes forgotten about is when we're dealing with food and beverage attrition, we want to make sure that we get credit for events that are brought to the facility, not by our group, not by our client, but by our client's sponsors. Because, hey, if our group was not going to be at the hotel doing their thing, then that sponsor would not be at the hotel doing their thing. So we want to get credit for that. A hotel will give you credit for this, but we need to build it into our agreement. Back in the day, I used to have an addendum for most of your convention properties. It was great. A client would say, yeah, I need an addendum on this. I know it's a big job, Sam, but can you do it for us? And I kind of say, sigh, yeah, I can do it for you. I just pull it up on my screen. But then the track changes era came, and that all kind of went out the window. But build that into your food and beverage attrition clauses. We see these in contracts. You see a lot of things in contracts that really don't work. These are two of them. Okay, so if a Hyatt changes to a Marriott, is that going to be a reason for us to get out of a contract? No. I think most people would say, yeah, those are good quality facilities. Construction renovations, yeah, it sounds good, but at the end of the day, it's not worth fighting over. Have we all seen in contracts, this is one of my favorite relics from the past. In the event that one of our guests is walked, yeah, they get this, that, they get transportation to the property, and they get a phone call. I love that. Everyone's got a cell phone, but yet they get one free phone call like they're in jail when they get walked. Space reassignments. Okay, do we like it when our space gets reassigned? No. Are we flexible? In this whole nice bunnies and rainbows, always be pleasant. Are we going to be flexible and open to the property if they say, hey, we need you to consider releasing your space? Of course we are. We only have one rule. You got to tell me first, because I am not going to get on site and find out, after my client finds out, presumably, that we've been moved, because that's going to make me look like I'm not on top of things. And that is not cool. That is not acceptable. So I would always communicate with the hotel, yes, we will be flexible, we're on the same team here, but you got to tell me first so that I can at least communicate that to my people. Anything else, I'm not going to be good with. Quiet enjoyment. When we heard that noise a little bit earlier in this talk, it sounded like a baggage cart or something back there. It reminded me, I was giving a presentation kind of in a nice room like this, and in the room next to me was a woman singing, and I'm not kidding, she sounded like Judy Garland. And it was beautiful. It was horribly distracting. And the issue with quiet enjoyment, it's not if the hotel is going to reduce the distraction. They will. They want to. Again, we're on the same team. But we want to make sure that it gets taken care of now. Not 2 minutes from now, not 5 minutes from now. You don't have that much time. So again, this is something where you're going to want to know where your people are at the hotel during your event, who you can call right away. So ask the hotel, hey, just in the crazy circumstance that something happens, who would I get a hold of right away to stop the noise? Force majeure. Okay. Do you need force majeure language in your contract? No. Okay, it's one of those implied terms. Every contract has a lot of implied terms. I think my deal here to come here was fairly informal, but there's implied terms that I would dress appropriately, that I would be sober at 9:15 in the morning. You know, just basic things. I would present original material. Okay, basic stuff. You know, that's all implied. We can't put every exact term in the contract because then it would be like this and it would just be crazy. Force majeure. If I rent a barn from Gary to hold a poker party and the barn burns down, well, that's kind of one of those things. The barn isn't there, so he doesn't have to provide the barn for my poker party, and what can I do? In a force majeure event, like a Katrina, each side can walk away from the deal as if it never existed. Now, having said that, we like to have force majeure language in our contracts because it gives it a little more specificity. The typical force majeure clause will have a myth in it. It'll say, in the event of events including but not limited to hurricanes, communicable diseases, we've all seen the list, fire, political upset, terrorism, which makes it illegal or impossible for us to hold the event, then either side can exit the contract without liability. That's a typical force majeure clause. Illegal or impossible. Ask yourself, what is illegal or impossible? What if I was hosting an event September 13th in Orlando, Florida after 9/11? Oh, sorry, I have to cancel. And the sales manager would say, well, I'm sorry, Sam, it's not illegal for you and your friends to drive down here, is it? No. It's not impossible for you to drive down here, is it? Well, no, but the planes aren't flying. I know, but we'll see you on the 13th. It's not illegal or impossible. So we want to have a little more flexible language in there, such as it is inadvisable. Hotel might push back a little bit, and you say, look, I'm not trying to be cute here. We need a little more flexibility. Nothing is illegal or impossible except Katrina. Commercially impracticable. Okay. But you can work together and get language that makes sense for both sides. Indemnification, this is frequently misunderstood. Indemnification is where we are telling whoever's providing something for us, typical example is motor coach transportation, that you are going to be responsible for those things and those people that you control. Think about it. If we utilize a bus to take our attendees somewhere, we don't own the bus, we're not driving the bus, we don't maintain the bus, but what happens with bus trips? People get hurt, buses crash, people fall down on the bus. We don't want our client to have responsibility for that. So we tell that bus company, look, you agreed to indemnify us in the event that there is a claim brought against us. Now, sometimes people will think, oh, okay, but if we have mirror clauses or reciprocal indemnification clauses, then they kind of cancel themselves out, right? No. It's just the the group, are going to be responsible for those things and those people that we control. So if our group, let's say, is a fraternity, and they tear apart the hotel, all right, we're going to be responsible for that. At the same time, if the clauses are reciprocal, if there are two of them, if they kind of look like a mirror, then we're saying, okay, hotel, you're going to be responsible for those things and those people that you control. So if your wait staff, unfortunately, drops a hot pot of boiling water or coffee on one of my attendees, you're going to be responsible for that. Okay? Service of liquor. Okay, let's talk about safety and health for a minute. Do you have a plan in the event something really wild happens? Do you have the phone numbers of the people you need to contact? Police, maybe security, EMT. Is there a person in your group or your client that is your go-to person? We want to make sure, boom, we have that number. Because again, we don't have minutes a lot of times. We have to really be able to make quick decisions. And again, this is going to be a way to elevate you in the eyes of your clients. They're going to think, wow, so-and-so is really on the ball here. You know, this gives us great confidence in his or her ability to get this job done. One of my favorites, service of alcoholic beverages. Where is ground zero? It's the person who's pouring the booze. At the end of the day, that is going to be who's responsible. Now, keep in mind, if Susie Sunshine gets blitzed at one of your events and drives her car into a telephone pole, everybody's going to get sued. Because the lawyer has to sue everybody in the beginning, and then you toss them out as you go along. Because if you add somebody later in the case, somebody might say, well, I would ask a different question in the deposition, Judge, it's not fair. And judges don't want to deal with that. So you have to just get everybody in the beginning. Ground zero is who's pouring it. So rule one is we don't want to be pouring it. But there's some real simple things too. You know, people obsess over drink tickets. They don't work. When I'm at a function like that, I ask people, hey, you going to use all your drink tickets? You know, I'll take it. Same thing with a cash bar. You know, you make sure you have a couple 20s on you, right? Service of food. Oh, thanks for the free food. I'll have another drink. How about this? I tell this to my clients. Put up a big sign behind each bar. If you need a ride, one will be provided for you. I can't wait to use that in a court of law. You know, you get some innocent victim, or not innocent, you get a victim on the stand, you know, they're in a wheelchair or something. Well, isn't it true that you could have had a free ride home? You know, and then they would say yes. Then you walk past the jury and you make it look like, you know, why are we even here? Offer a free ride, doesn't cost you anything. And nobody will ever take you up on it either. Here again, we talk about negligence of third parties. Here we're talking about indemnification again. If somebody is supplying something to you, caterer, motor coach transportation, bungee jumping, whatever. If they are responsible for something that's out of your control, we don't want to be on the hook for that. Lastly, Copyright Act of 1976, we cannot use photographs that we didn't take. You hire, anyone here getting married soon? Okay, no one's getting married. Sad room. If you were going to get married and you hired a wedding photographer, let's say you paid $1,500 to take pictures at your wedding, who owns those pictures? The photographer. Yeah. So you want to make sure that if your client is using any type of music, that you have a music license. Again, this can elevate you in their eyes. They'll probably say, we've never had a music license, we don't need one. And then you can sit back with sweet satisfaction knowing that you told them, okay? But yeah, you can't use other people's music. And if you have any questions about music licensing or anything whatsoever, don't hesitate to contact me. I would stick around here to talk to you. I got to run to make a flight that ended up being much earlier than I thought. My wife always kids me that I leave so much time I could walk to the airport if my car blew up, but for some reason I'm leaving shortly after 12. So anyway, you've been a wonderful group. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate you asking me to come here, and I wish the best for each and every one of you. Thank you.